Hello and welcome everybody, this is Roland Hartmann from graphicinmotion.com and I'm back with another tutorial for Superluminal.tv. Let's take a quick look what we are going to create today. Today we are really doing something very exciting. We are taking a look at one of the latest features of Stardust, and that is using volumes inside After Effects. Yeah, you heard right. Volumes, particle measure inside After Effects using Stardust. So this is totally awesome. And I will show you how to set up this scene that we can see here. By the way, you can also download this scene from superluminal.tv and then you can play around. So let's get started with this tutorial. Okay, so I will start with a blank scene and I will create a new composition and just call this my 3D volume. And now let's add a new solid and call it Stardust. And let's add the Stardust effect to this layer. All right. Now let me quickly show you the easiest way how to create a volume. So the basic technique is that you add a volume node that's right here. You can also access these by right-clicking. And just add this to your scene. And in this case, I have a particle setup, so standard emitter with standard particles. And if I want to create a mesh out of these, so if I want to use this volume as a particle mesher, then I just link my volume. And you see, just doing that doesn't do anything. And this is because you always need a model node to create the 3D data. So now you see everything disappeared, but this is only because of some settings. So if we go to the volume node now, and let's take a quick look. You see I have the particle minimum size here, and this is set to 0, and I have to increase this now. So let's take a look. I will set it to 15 for now, and you see something is happening already. Let me make this a bit bigger so that we can see it a bit nicer. Okay. And I will add a light to the scene so that we can see that this is actually a 3D mesh. So let's add a light quickly. Just standard point light in this case is fine. And you see we have 3D meshed particles, which is totally awesome. So this is just a basic workflow how this works. So no matter whether you want to create a volume out of particles, then you have to do this. But you also can do the same with a 3D object. So I will show you this. Let's go to our preset browser. And let's use one of these models that are included here. And in this case, I will just use this extruded S here. So just add this to the scene. Or actually, in this case, I can replace it. I will replace it. Yeah, right. Okay. So now what we've got here, if I go to my custom view, you see this is extruded S, a 3D shape. If I want to create a volume now inside this shape, I have to do the following. So first of all, you see we have an emitter, we have a particle, we have a model, and we have a material. And actually, I don't need the emitter and the particle. So I will just delete those two nodes for now. I just need my model and my material to create this shape here. And I also have this text here. And let me take a quick look which font I use here. I think it's Nexa Light. Let me just change this to something more bold. You can use whatever font you want, but this is better for creating volumes. And I will just check which extrude depth I have. So I go to my model properties and go to extrude properties. Extrude depth is 80. I think that this is okay. Let me see. Yeah, that should be fine. Now let's create a volume inside of this S. To do that, you have to select your volume node. And now we can bring in our model into this volume node. And if you take a close look, when I apply something here, let me show you this quickly, there is a second import here, and we will deal with that a little bit later. So now I just send the model data here into the volume, but of course now I need an output. So I need another model node, and I will just put this in here. And now you see suddenly my model disappeared and I have this volume right here. Okay, so this is pretty cool. Now I created a volume inside my model. Of course, now I cannot see my model anymore. So if I want to see my model, then I have to just duplicate this, Ctrl D, and get it outside of my hierarchy here for a moment. So let me just quickly drag this out here. And actually I can delete this material node because we do not need this in our volume tree. Okay. Now, just to make this a bit more obvious, let me quickly make this material here transparent, that you can see through it a little bit easier. And now I will show you a few more features of this volume builder. So first of all, if we take a look at these basic settings of the volume node, you see that we have an action here, and this is now set to create. And creating volumes means that you create a volume. But you see that it has also other features. So you can use multiple instances, or you have to use multiple instances of this node to get good results. So what does this mean? I will show you this in a moment. So right now you see we have these strange, and by the way, let me add a material here so that you can see our volume a bit better. So I will add a material connected to my model, to my 3D volume output, and I will just change the diffuse color for now. So color from particle 0. And I will just change the diffuse color to something more obvious. Okay, now you can see our volume. And you see we have these slight problems, and this is because it's intersecting actually with our model. So the solution to what we can do is to shrink our volume. And now I can show you another option that we have here. So first of all, let me rename these volumes because I will use a few of these volume nodes and I always want to know what is. So I will just call this my volume creator. And now I want to add in another volume node. So let's take another volume node and let's drag it in between these. If it turns green, then you can just snap it in and it will be connected. Cool. Now this will be, I will change this now to volume offset. So in my case, I will use this offset node now. I will set it to the second option that we have here, delete and erode. And in my case, I will just use it to get rid of this intersection by shrinking it down using the erode. So if I put in here a negative value like -4, you see now we do not have this intersection anymore. Usually you can use this, or this offset is pretty handy if you want to refine a mesh that you build with particles. And you can really use this to, for example, close small holes or just get rid of some small details that you do not want. So let me quickly show you what this does. If I change this, this volume is not really good to demonstrate the effect here, but be aware that this is really a useful tool to refine meshes. And of course also you can change this to open close and this will have a bit of a different effect. If you take a look what this does, if I increase this now or if I decrease the value here, depending on how you want your mesh to look, then check out these options. In my case, as I said, I just want to use it to shrink it down a bit, erode it a little bit, and then we get rid of these intersections. I will set it to -2 for now. Now, okay, you see I'm pretty far zoomed in. That's why the resolution is so bad. So let me quickly just zoom in with my camera that I'm closer to my object and that we can see a bit more here what's going on. Okay, now I want to deal with volume quality. If you take a look here, it's quite a bit jagged and you have a few different options to improve this. So first of all, if you go to our creator, by the way, I will just rename this one now, my volume offset. To improve the quality of a volume, first of all, the most important or one of the most important things here is the voxel size. Of course, if you increase this, then it gets rougher, but also faster, so more responding. And if you decrease it, then it gets a bit smoother and a bit more accurate, you see, but of course also it gets a bit slower because we create more geometry. So depending on what you're after, you have to maybe change the voxel size. Then we have this voxel half size, and this is more or less something like a spread value of your volume. So if I increase this, in this case it will not make much of a difference because I have no particles out here. But if you're working with particles or particle meshing, then you can control how far out your volume will spread by using this. And I think even if I put it down, yeah, you see it's not working right here to really demonstrate this. But just that you know, this is some kind of fall off of your volume. Then we have this smooth option, and if I turn this on, you see, then it gets really deformed, and I put in quite a high value for this smooth now, 5, and if I put it to 1, we'll see what this does. And this smooth more or less deals with the whole shape, so it smoothes the whole surface of our mesh. If you want to improve these edges here, then we have another option, and this is also pretty cool, so I will show you this now. Let's add in another volume, and let's link it between our offset and our model node. And you see that now here you have this filter. And if you set it to filter, now you have a few different algorithms here. So you have the default, the Gaussian, median, and so on. And they are more or less lined up here by increasing complexity. So these are all filters to smooth your volumes. So for now, let's go with the default, and let's take a look what this does. If I set this to 1 now, you see immediately that it somehow improved the quality here. So if I set it to 2, it gets a bit smoother, and you can change the iterations. If I set this to 2, it shrinks it even more, so it more or less applies the whole algorithm 2 times. So let's set this back to 1 because this was too much. But you see already that I have quite a smooth surface now. You know, it doesn't look too bad. There's this option which is pretty handy. If you go to your render settings in Stardust, you can change this to preview. So if I enable preview now, okay, now I cannot see my mesh because my model is here. So let me just disable this quickly. I just right click here and disable my model, and now you see the surface of your volume. That's pretty cool because now you can determine, okay, how many polygons do I have and how smooth does the mesh really look. One little hint here, you can toggle on and off these wireframe modes by clicking this little icon that you can see here right on top in your Stardust settings. So if you click this little icon here, then you can quickly change between the shaded version and the preview version, whichever you specified here. So if I specify the wire here and then click this, then it will be shown in this mode. And if I change it to shaded, then I can change between the standard view and my preview right here. So that's very handy. So again, you can do flat shading, you can do a wire shading and shaded. That's also very nice. So I will stick with this for a moment to show you the operations that I will do now. So let's go back to our filter. I should have done this actually from the beginning, that you understand what's going on. So I will quickly show you this one more time. If you go to the voxel size and reduce this, and you see what's happening now, we have way more denser mesh. So we created really a lot of polygons. So always keep this in mind when creating these, because this, of course, can really have an impact on the performance of your project. There's an option to cache the volume, but we will take a look at this later on when we add some animation to this. So for now, let me turn this back to a nice amount, like 8 or something, that we do not get it too dense. Okay, so let's go back to our filter. I should actually rename this, that I know what it is, because if you work with these volumes, you can end up with quite a few of these nodes. So filter, now I set it to default. Let's go to the Gaussian. I will just check this one out, and you see immediately that it has a bit more of an effect, so it makes it even smoother. And if I really increase this now, like 4, you see it's nearly gone. So you have to be a bit careful here with these values. Often number 1 is enough. If I turn this off quickly, you will see the difference here. Just smooth out the surface, and we get a pretty nice smooth surface here. Okay, so one more option that we have, let me show you this quickly, is to add a noise. So we'll add this right after my creator. So let's add in another volume node here, and let's snap it after my creator, like so. And this will be a noise. Now let's change this to noise. And you see immediately what's happening. And be aware, if you set this, for example, after the offset, it will not work. So set this directly after in the chain here, directly after the creator. I will just rename this to noise. Okay. I can use this noise something like a bool operation. So you see that I'm somehow subtracting volumes here or geometry from my volume. So let me change a few settings here. First of all, let me scale down the noise amplitude. It's a bit big, so let's go to maybe 20%. We can see a bit more. Still a bit big. Let's go to 10. Okay. Now if I increase the amount, then it will be gone. So I will decrease it a bit, maybe to something like 25. For now, that was not enough. 50. Not enough as well. 75. And now you see what's happening here. So now it is more or less subtracting from my volume. And I can, of course, now play around with the noise levels, make this a bit higher, then it gets a bit more complex, or even scale it down further. And maybe it's also because I have this offset and this filter going on, so I will turn these off for a moment, just that I know what I'm doing to my mesh here without filtering. Yeah, okay. So you see the filter changed this look quite a bit, so it was a little bit too heavy probably. Now you can see way better what's happening here. So we have this noise scale. I can make it even smaller, and then you see what's happening. So my noise is more or less a 3D noise, and it is subtracting geometry from my volume. And you can, of course, use this to create a reveal or to create some kind of a fluid look. So if I put this up to, oops, that was too much, 10, and now set the noise speed to 20 and create a quick round preview, we'll see what this does. And now it's animating and the noise is evolving, and that way you can create something like fluids. Pretty cool effect. Okay, so let me turn on my offset again and my filter. Okay, now I show you another thing that we can do that is really cool. We can do Boolean operations. Therefore, I have to drag my volume noise out of this hierarchy, and you can do this by holding down Alt and just dragging this out. You see now it's just disconnected here, but the connection stays intact. It's pretty handy. So let's delete our noise. And now let's add an emitter. So we will use this emitter now to bool, so to subtract from our volume. I use an emitter and particles. So now we will set up a quick emitter here, and I want to use a box here. I want to emit only once. And let's set the speed down to 10, so really low speed. Now let's see where this is sitting here. I think that I should actually, what I should do before I play around with this position here, let's go to my model node here, and let's go to my model properties, and let's center this. I think that this is the better way to do it, right? Let's do the same here. If I use this later on, I will center this as well so that they are in the same position. Okay. Now let's go back to my emitter, and I will just move my camera up here a bit that I can see what I do. Awesome. Now back to my emitter. The size of my, first of all, I need way more particles here so that I can see what's happening. Let's set this to a quite high value, 15,000 maybe, so that it's a bit crowded. Looks awesome. Now let's change the size here. I need definitely more size on Y because I want to cover actually my whole S here, and I also need a bit more here on the X size. Doesn't look too bad actually. So what am I doing now is just I create some particles, and then I will add a model here. So let's go to my particle node and let's change this to model. Now we have these small cubes, and I will go into my settings here, and I will increase the size here quite a bit. So maybe something like 30. And now let's change the random size to maybe 75. Let's see what this does. Doesn't look too bad. And now I will give them an over live size, and we will use a preset here. And I want to scale them down over live. So we'll fade these out, apply. Okay. So now what's happening is that they start big, and then they will just reduce while moving around very slowly with a speed of 10. You see in the beginning, I want them to more or less cover my whole volume. We will see. So, okay. Let me quickly just change this back, this shading here, the preview, just that I see what's going on here a bit better. And actually, one more thing that I want to do, I want to add a quick ambient light just to light the dark areas here a bit. So just a bit, that it's not so flat, everything. Maybe increase this even a bit. Yeah, now I see just the edges here and you see a bit better what's going on. Okay, so back to my emitter. Now, how can I get these to interact? So there is this second in point here that I told you about. And if you set this now to this corner, then you see now I actually added this emitter to my volume, and now it thinks, okay, these are particles and I have to create a volume, and now it creates a mesh that is more or less made out of my model and out of my emitter particles, as you can see here. It looks also pretty cool. You can do really cool things. You can, for example, combine two emitters and stuff. And why is that? This is because we have this Boolean operation here. You see that we have an add operation here. And you can also make a difference operation and an intersection operation. In this case, I want to use the difference operation. So let's change this and you will see what this does. Immediately, nearly my whole volume is gone. And this is because now Stardust is subtracting my particles from my volume. Maybe you wonder why it looks like that. And this is because Stardust, if you're working with volumes, then it treats all particles as spheres. So no matter whether I put in cubes, it will just look at them and render them as spheres. And what this does now is that it is building up, because my particles vanish within these 1.5 seconds here, so the volume builds up. And this is the whole build-up animation. And if you really want to do this, you can go into the first frame and take a look, and you see, okay, now not everything is covered. So there are two options we can do here. Go to our emitter. We can even make our particles bigger. But I think that probably the better idea here is to just increase the particle count, maybe to 20,000. Let's see whether this covers everything. More or less, not quite. And let me go to my particle settings and change these a bit, so make them a bit bigger, maybe 36 or something. Yeah, you see now nearly everything is covered, and I will put this to 90. And this small dot, yeah, it doesn't matter for now. Okay, so let me quickly make a run preview here, just of these 2 seconds, that you can see what's happening here and how this looks. And you see now our volume is building up in a very organic and nice way. So this looks pretty cool. Now, to create the same style that we had before, we will create a quick wireframe and I will add a reflection plane, and then we are finished with this project. Oh, sorry, one more thing I forgot, and this is important. I will show you quickly the option to cache the volume. So let's take a look at that. How can I cache volumes? First of all, what is caching? Caching means that you save out certain data to your disk, that you do not have to reload it all the time, and that the preview will work a little bit faster. So if you take a look now here, how long this takes, actually it's really fast, and this is because we are not using here crazy dense meshes. Let's make it crazy so that we can see it a bit better. So let's set this to 2, the voxel size. And you see now it's way finer and way more defined. And if I now render, you will see that it gets slower, of course. And this is due to the higher polygon count. It's still very responsive, very fast. Actually, really, I'm amazed by this feature. It's really cool. I mean, I'm right now, I'm building a 3D volume inside After Effects. That's pretty amazing. Looks really cool. Okay, and it rendered really fast, so I would not even cache this, but I will show you how to do it anyway. So let's go to our Stardust layer, and inside our settings here on top, there is this option to cache the volume. Here you see volume cache, it's set to off now. First of all, you have to specify a cache folder, and therefore you have to save your project. So let me do this quickly. I will save here, just increment and save this project. And right, okay, that's good. And now if I set this to on, what it will do now, you see now there's the path, and now it will calculate a cache file when I'm creating a preview. So if I create a preview now, run preview, it will write my volume data to my disk. So you will see how long this will take now to render, and you see it's a bit slower now because it is writing these data, I think. Still very nice. Okay, so now we are nearly finished. And now this volume data here is written to my disk, and you see it plays back very fast, nearly real time. Now, if I do changes that have nothing to do with my volume, for example, if I just change my light color here to something crazy, and if I create a run preview now, you see that it renders really fast, and this is because it's not recalculating the volume, it's just recalculating the shading here, the light, but the volume is now read from the disk. If I do any changes now to the volume, then it will rewrite this cache to the disk. But there is an option to avoid this, and you can do this by just selecting this option here, volume cache, and you can change this to freeze. If I now freeze this, and for example I go into my filter that I've got here, and if I set this maybe to the Gaussian and put in a volume value of 5, which should normally totally kill my look here, you see that it doesn't do anything. And we still get this preview. So this is somehow you can preserve, or you can say to Stardust, whatever I do to my volume, just load what you save to the disk. This is the freeze option. And now if I go back to my option here and change it again to on, you will see now it will update. Now it updated the volume. And if I preview now, it will also update the cache. So now it's caching the new volume. So you see that now the playback is slower again because it is writing to the disk again. Okay, so I will just undo this. I don't want these changes. It doesn't look too good. Okay, I think I will just do it manually, not with Control Z. Default, that's good. And actually now let me just quickly turn off my cache because I don't need this now. Okay, turn it off, and I will go back to my volume creator and just change the voxel size back to 8 where we were before, so that's smoother. Right, and I will change my color light because this is horrible. Okay, so now I will show you how you can create this scene with a quick wireframe. And by the way, the last tutorial that I released shows exactly how to create wireframes. There is also a very fast method. There are some presets here in the models folder, edges, and we can use, what do we use here? We will use this wireframe text setup here. It's also with our S. So let's just add this to the scene. And let's see what we got here. And you see we have got something, and this is only the wireframe. I think maybe I will delete it again. I think there's another one. Let me quickly delete all these notes here because I think I just used the wrong one here. Let me take a look again. Models, edges, it's probably this one here. Add to the scene. I'm not sure. Yeah, it's this setup. That's what I wanted. Okay. So now I have this whole setup here. And we will replace two things here now. So first of all, let me make a little bit more room that we can see what we're doing here. First of all, I do not want to use this text here. I want to use the model that I've got here. So I will just delete this one. Do not need it. And I also will delete this one here. Now I will copy my model here. This is the input of my volume, or Control D to create a duplicate. And use it right here with these edges and these vertices here. You see what this is doing. Wow, this is a very, very dense mesh. I think we have to deal with this in a moment. Okay, but you see I have my wireframe here. So why is this so horribly dense? Let's take a look here at the options. There is path samples. Yeah, that's way too high. So let's set this to 5. Now it looks way better. And extrude depth, that's okay. Bevel, we also have bevels. We do not need any bevels here on this one here. We do not need bevels. Okay, you see now it starts looking nicer. And now you can just quickly go to these edges, the edge particles, and reduce the size a bit here. So I think, let's see what we have got here. Particle properties, we are on 1. Okay, let's do it in the model properties. I don't know whether I mentioned it. Yeah, I think I mentioned it. So if you want to learn how to create these wireframes from scratch for every model, then check out my recent tutorial. I released one dealing with these wireframe structures, also new in Stardust, also very cool. But right now I want to turn down the size of my cylinder here. So let's go to the model property here. And actually I should go to the primitive properties, makes more sense. And here I have the size in X, it's set to 1, and I will set it to 0.5 to make this even a bit smoother, very nice. And the sphere size I can change through the particle properties. It's probably easier, set this to 2. And now you see I have nice and smooth grid here. Could change the material. Let's say I want these to be black to mimic the project that we did before. Actually, it said particle. Yeah, let's change it in the particles. I will change the color inside the particles. If it's set up like that, that's cool. Now you see my frame here is black, and this looks really nice. Now, one last thing, because I promised, I will show you how to set up a reflection plane. That's very simple. Let's add in another model node, and in this case, this will be our reflection plane. And we will use a primitive, and we will use a cube. So let's make this bigger. I think that with about 750 times 750 should be fine for this project. Yeah, looks quite nice. Can also turn down the segments. I don't need that many here. Okay, and could turn up the size a bit. Not really relevant, but just to make sure. And now I will just bring this. And now I will just go to model properties and change the set position a bit. So I will bring it back. Let's see how far I have to bring it back. Like that probably. And now there is this option. If you take a look here, reflection plane. It's down here on the bottom. And if I activate this now, nothing is happening. And this is because I have no material. So let's apply a material to this. Where is my material node? Now I added another model. I don't know what I did now. Sorry. Undo. Material. Right. Here's my material. Let's link it up to this model. And inside my material, I will now go to the reflection and just change this to a very high value, 100. And you see immediately that something is happening. I somehow messed up my volume. I think that I just, what did I do here? Oh, okay. I just unlink this. So now it's back to where we want to be. Okay, reflection plane. So sorry. Material, and let's change some settings. Let's bring the roughness down for a moment so that we just can see our reflection a bit clearer. So I will set this to 10. Now you see we have, the other way around. I have to uncheck this. Yeah. But you see that it is not reflecting right in the right way. So I have to change this a bit. And first of all, I have to change the angle, I think, to 90% or 90 degrees on X. And now you see that it is just sitting behind my model. And I can use this offset now to specify this. Let's see, 45. That should be a good offset, probably even a bit too much. 40. To set up this reflection correctly, there's also a little helper included in Stardust, and that's also quite cool. So if you come up to the top to your helpers, you can either activate this right here, this icon, and you see now I have my model, my reflective surface selected, and then you can see this helper here. And that is actually the helper that is displaying the orientation of this reflection. So you can turn on this specific helper right here inside the model node, and the overall view of these helpers you can turn on and off right here. And this will help you to align your reflection properly. So I should have done this before, but if you take a look now, I'll quickly show you this. If I, for example, set this back to 0 as we had it, then you see that the reflection now shows that it is laying pretty flat here in the scene. So this will really help you to easily orientate your reflections. Now let's see whether this is holding up when I turn around my camera. Well, I'm very far in, so but you see, yeah, it's holding up quite nicely. So the reflection is okay. Okay, so I think that this is it for this tutorial. I see we have one more problem here. You can see that we have our volume is intersecting with our cage here, with our wireframe. This is of course not acceptable. So let's go to our offset here. And let's play with this a bit more. So let's set it to -3. Still not enough. Maybe -4. And now you see it stays nicely within our boundaries here and looks really cool. Good. So I think I covered everything that I wanted to cover. I covered the volume basics. I covered the wireframe. Didn't really cover it, but I showed you how to set it up really quickly. We covered the reflection plane. So I hope that you learned something from this tutorial. If you have any questions, then please post them in the comments. I thank you very much for watching, and I really hope to see you soon.